So we will continue our discussion on economy. We have started off with a new module and we have done 3 sessions already. So the new module is actually balance of payment. Okay. So in the first session, we have tried to understand what is balance of payment and we understood the different accounts in balance of payment. Okay. So we talked about visible account, we talked about invisible account, we talked about current account, we talked about capital account. We understood current account balance, current account deficit, capital account balance, capital account deficit, and all these concepts. We have done trade deficit, everything we have done in detail. And then we have discussed about balance of payment summary with actual data, and we have understood all these concepts that we have discussed in terms of actual data. And I have told you how inflow forex and outflow forex is actually happening in BOP. The reserve change we have explained in detail. We have also seen balance of payment equilibrium, BOP surplus, BOP deficit, all these concepts. Okay. And then in the second video we have talked about indicators of balance of payment situation. There we have discussed in detail about adequate forex which is required for a country like India, and for that matter any country, and we have understood it in terms of import cover. And then we have talked about the comfort zone of this current account deficit. So we have talked about current account deficit in detail. There I have told you how to convert this GDP in terms of purchasing power parity, market rate, and all those concepts we have discussed. We have also talked about external debt, and we have discussed all the components of external debt, and we have shortly discussed about public debt over there. And I've told you as per international debt statistics, India is the 5th largest debtor of the country, but still we are less indebted, and the reason of less indebtedness also I have told you because it is understood in terms of vulnerability. And I've told you our BOP situation is actually strong, even though if it is not very strong, but we are strong. We have also talked about debt service ratio. We have talked about sovereign wealth fund. So all these concepts are done. And then in the third video, we have talked about different exchange rate systems, and I've told you which system is followed by India, which system is actually followed by China. Everything is actually discussed. So what are the different exchange rate system we have discussed? First one we have actually discussed is the fixed or pegged exchange rate system, and then we have talked about floating or flexible exchange rate system. So in fixed exchange rate system, the central bank is actually fixing the exchange rate, like this is what we have followed till 1991, and then we have changed to some other system. Okay, so it was a central bank which was fixing the price, and here we have discussed the concept of devaluation, revaluation, etc. And then we have discussed about floating. It all depends on demand and supply in the market. So prices, the price of a dollar is actually fixed on the base of demand for dollar and supply of dollar. So if the demand is increasing, automatically the price of dollar in terms of rupee will increase. That means dollar will appreciate and rupee will depreciate. There I have discussed the concept of appreciation and depreciation, and then we have went on to explain the advantages and disadvantages of depreciation. Okay, and I've told you the same will be the case of devaluation also, and China, it is like devaluation they are doing most of the times. Okay, and then after that we have discussed about the third one, wider band exchange rate system. So wider band exchange rate system means there will be a band which is fixed by the central bank, and you are allowed to fluctuate in that, within that band. It is a kind of fixed, because this band is actually fixed by the central bank. So you can fluctuate, the exchange rate will actually fluctuate within this band. And then we have discussed about crawling peg exchange rate system. So here also central bank fixes a band, but that band also periodically revised. So it's almost a fixed exchange rate system, and I've told you China is actually following this system. So here it is devaluation and revaluation. It is like this. So if this is the case, let's suppose this is the band which is fixed in the beginning. So you're allowed to fluctuate in this band. Then this band can be revised by the central bank. Then you will fluctuate within this, and it can be further revised like this. So you can fluctuate like this, and it can come down like this. So it all depends on the central bank. So this is what actually China is following. This is almost a fixed system. Okay, so this is actually another variant of fixed exchange rate system. We have discussed this in detail, so if you want you can go back to the previous video. 3 videos we have done. Out of that, the third video contain all these exchange rates. The first is about BOP and the different accounts. Second is about the indicators of BOP and other components. Third is about exchange rate systems. So here, see, if you have any doubt on any of my previous videos, you can actually get in touch with me. This is my Instagram ID. This is my Telegram channel also. So you can join the Telegram channel, Zia Safir. You will get all the videos that I've done so far, be it history or economy, and everything is there. And you can get connected to me in this Instagram ID. Okay. Then after that, we have talked about the fifth category, that is managed float exchange rate system, which is also known as dirty float, because central bank can interfere. You know, I've told you, if there is an increase in demand of dollar will appreciate. So if you can provide enough supply, then that demand can be tackled. So RBI can actually interfere here, and if RBI having huge forex with RBI can actually pump the forex into the forex market so that the supply will increase, so rupee won't depreciate. Okay, so this is also known as dirty float, because the central bank can actually interfere and the central bank can manipulate here. So we are following this system, managed float, not complete float. Okay, so I hope this is clear for all of you. And then I have told you, we were following till 1991 we were following fixed exchange rate system, and from 1993 onwards we are actually following this managed float. Okay, so this is what the discussion that we have done so far. Now see, earlier there was one more system that is known as Bretton Woods system. It was there from 1947 to 71. It was actually implemented by IMF. Okay, so what have been done here is, all the exchange rates of members of IMF is linked with dollar. Okay, so all exchange rate of members of IMF is actually linked with dollar, and then dollar is linked with gold. Okay, so dollar linked with gold, and $1 is actually equal to 35 ounce of gold. Okay, so currency of any country is linked with dollar, and dollar is actually linked with the gold. Now in 1971 what happened is, US said that you cannot convert the dollar into gold. You may have dollar, but you cannot give that dollar and you will get gold. So that conversion is not possible. So then what happened? The system break. Okay, so from 1971 onwards, different countries actually adopted different system, and we adopted fixed system from 1971. And if you remember, I've already told you, we have devalued our currency 3 times. One was in 1949, then in 1966. Okay, so 1949 and 1966 we were under this system actually. So even when we were devaluing at this time, actually we got the permission from IMF. We are supposed to get the permission because we had an agreement in this context. And when we have devalued again in 1991, then also we were actually devalued from, see, $1 was 18 rupee, and $1 it was devalued as per the conditions under Washington Consensus, which we signed between IMF and World Bank, and we kept it as 24 rupee. Why this was actually done is basically to promote exports, right? So exports become more competitive, exporters are gaining more, so they are incentivized. Secondly, when the foreigners are buying things from India, they are getting more value, so they started buying products. Otherwise, if it was kept like 18, see, it was fixed. So understand, even when BOP crisis is there, otherwise rupee would have automatically depreciated when the forex shortage and this BOP crisis was there. If it was floating, or even if it was managed float, rupee would have depreciated. Even now under managed float, you can see that even RBI can't do anything here. From 45 to 67 to 70, the rupee is depreciating in the short span of 5 years. So here nothing is actually happening despite this crisis, because we had a fixed system and central bank is fixing the price. But if it would have been a flexible system or a floating system, it would have automatically depreciated, and to some extent the problem would have solved. Okay, so that's why IMF actually recommended us to devalue, and it will actually promote export. So automatically forex will come, so you can actually address the shortage of forex and your BOP situation will improve. So that is why we went for devaluation. So 3 times we went for devaluation: 1949, 66 and 1991, all with the permission of IMF. Okay, now let's try to understand this depreciation of rupee from 2011 to, if you see 2011 it was 45, and 2015 it was coming around 68-70. Okay, so from 45 to 70, why this depreciation was there? So this was always a mains question from 2014, 15, 16, all years we are actually expecting this question. Even now also you should be knowing these reasons for this, because these reasons are common all the time, and if you get prelims question, among the choices you should be in a position to pick the answer, and in mains you should be in a position to write the answer also. So I have told you already, when I am taking up a chapter, we will be covering it both from prelims as well as mains perspective. Not only the facts I am giving you the entire concepts and every scenarios we are covered with respect to that particular topic, and we are even covering each and every word in the syllabus. Okay, so the reasons for let me try to explain you that causes of depreciation of rupee during 2011-15 time. So it was depreciated from 45 to 70. Okay, and then also it is there, after that also it is there. So you understood already that even if we are going for managed float, it is very difficult for RBI to manage. Why? Because mostly external reasons are there, and it is very difficult to contain this external reasons. Okay, so let's talk about the reasons here. The first one and the most important one is actually import increased. Now when import increased, what happened? Which import and everything I'll discuss. Firstly, when import increase, importers will create demand or will create supply. I've already discussed in the previous session, importers will create demand for dollar, and this is outflow of dollar. Okay, so outflow of forex, so they create demand of dollar. So the demand of dollar is increasing, automatically rupee will depreciate and dollar will appreciate. That is one thing. And which import? I'm specifically talking about crude oil. Okay, now understand one thing, that the quantity of crude oil is not changing. The whatever we were importing before and now it almost same, but what happened, actually the price is increased. Okay, so and we know that the demand for crude oil is actually inelastic. It doesn't matter whether the price is increasing or decreasing, we have to get that much oil. Okay, so it is not much responsive to price. It's not the case that if the price is decreasing we will import 2 times the oil, or if the price is increasing we won't import oil. That is not the situation. We don't have any choice. So if the choice is not available for you, we call it as inelastic. We have discussed that in the chapter of demand and supply, right? So luxury items, if you talk about, for that you have choices. So when the price is increasing, you may opt not to buy. For example, car, it's luxury item. If the price of the car is increasing, you may think I won't buy now. If the offer is coming, I'll buy. So if the price of a car is reducing, you may buy it. Okay, so it is elastic. That means the demand of these items are responsive to prices. But inelastic means demand of certain items are not responsive to price, like medicine. Even if the price of a drug is increasing, you can't stop taking medicine. Even if the price is reducing, you can't take 2 times the medicine. You have to buy the same quantity and you have to consume the same quantity. Exactly the same happens with the food also. Not different protein foods or anything. I'm talking about basic foods, right? If the price is increasing or decreasing, you have to consume the food. No matter whether, if the price is increased, you are not going to consume half of the food. If the price is decreased, you are not going to consume 2 times or 3 times the food. You have to consume it. So the demand for these items are inelastic. Essential items are inelastic. That means you don't have choice. If you have choice, it is elastic. So here the demand for crude oil, we don't have choice. We don't have any domestic production. So this is purely inelastic. So inelastic means even if the price is increased, we have to buy the same quantity. So 47% of our total bill is actually from this only. So that is one reason. So we have to pay huge amount of dollar or forex. So there is a huge forex outflow because of this. And then we have gold. Okay, then we have coal import. Gold import is mainly because of inflation. Inflation was going on at this, huge inflation was there. So when inflation is there, what actually happens? There is no point in investing in bank. Okay, because the real interest that you are getting is not necessarily beneficial to you. So let's suppose if you are investing 100 rupee in bank, let's suppose you're investing 100 rupee in bank, and if your interest that you are supposed to get is 10%, so how much you'll get? You'll get 110 rupee. Okay, so you invest 100 rupee and what you get is 110 rupee after 1 year. Now imagine in the same context when inflation is there, 10% inflation is there. So what will happen? 10% inflation means actually your purchasing power is coming down. So whatever you bought, this is in case of 2011. Now in 2012, whatever you bought for 100 rupee in 2011, 10% inflation means if you need to buy those same items, you need 110 rupee. Okay, so what ultimately I want to tell you here is, if you invest that in bank, you will get 110 rupee, and if you need to buy the same items, you need to spend 110 rupee. So is there any advantage for you? No, actually you don't have any advantage by investing in bank. Okay, so the real interest is actually very minimum, or if inflation is 10%, if the interest was around 15%, okay, so this is a nominal interest. The real interest will be after deducting the inflation. Effectively, how much you are getting? You are getting 5% return only. You understood? Because inflation is there 10%, so that inflation has to be adjusted. So effective interest, that the real interest is adjusted after the nominal interest or adjusted after the inflation, you will be getting 5% only. So instead of investing in financial institutions, people prefer to invest in gold, real estate, etc. So that is the reason why gold import was very, very high at this time, mainly because of inflation. Because people don't have trust, or people actually won't benefit from investment in the financial institutions or any financial instruments. Okay, so then call import. So all these are part of import side. And then second reason is actually again very important, withdrawal of foreign investment. Withdrawal of foreign investment will also lead to outflow of forex, right? Withdrawal of foreign investment, mainly PFI. FDI, foreign investments are of two types, FDI and PFI. FDI is it's a long-term investment, so it is very difficult to withdraw at any time. But PFIs, they are investing in shares, so it is very easy for them to take their money back anytime. So that is very volatile, very high risk involved. Everything related to this we have already discussed. So if you have any doubt in any of the previous videos, you can just join this Telegram channel, or you can get in touch with me in this Instagram ID. All the videos are there in this Telegram channel. Okay, so now withdrawal of foreign investment. So there are two reasons for this. We will try to understand the domestic reasons as well as external reasons. So domestic reasons, during this time, because of high inflation, a lot of scams, a lot of issues, political instability, the macroeconomic situation in the country deteriorated. Okay, macroeconomic situation deteriorated, and actually people didn't have enough trust to invest in the country. So now, what are the indications of this deterioration of macroeconomic situation? Firstly, you can see that in terms of high inflation. So high and persistent inflation. High inflation. So what will happen with high inflation? When high inflation is there, we have already discussed when we discussed about banking and RBI, that the main objective of RBI is not to promote growth. Obviously, that is one of the objectives, but to control the prices, or the price stabilization is the main objective. So what RBI have to do here? Inflation is because of demand. Demand is because of money supply. So you have to tackle the money supply. You have to prevent money supply. How to do that? Increase the interest rates. So obviously that is going to affect the growth. Okay, so what RBI did? Interest actually increased. That created a lot of problems. Okay, so it actually affected investment, and it affected industrial growth, and entire business environment actually was not in favor for investment, and the overall business sentiment is actually affected. Volatility in the financial market and all actually happened because of this. Second one, we can see in terms of high fiscal deficit. Okay, because very high subsidies are given, so fiscal deficit is very high, and in high trade deficit, then you can see high current account deficit. All these, what you mean by fiscal deficit, that we have discussed in budget. But trade deficit we have just discussed in this chapter in the first session, and current account deficit also we have discussed in this session only. We have discussed about current account, and in that trade account is there, invisible account is there, current account deficit I told you, trade account deficit I've told you, invisible account deficit I've told you, everything we have discussed. So here I'm just referring to that, I'm not discussing in detail. And then increasing NPA, non-performing assets, that is also one of the reason. And apart from that, policy paralysis, Okay, government is not able to implement any decision, and in fact 2015 mains policy paralysis was one of the essay. Okay, so essay question, it is not the paralysis, it is not the problem of policies, rather the problem of implementation of policies which affecting the growth, something like that. There was a question which was related to policy paralysis only, because that was there in the news every time. Okay, now what about the external reason? External reasons are not in your control. Eurozone crisis or the sovereign debt crisis. Okay, so sovereign debt crisis, quantitative easing, or rather the opposite actually happened, tapering of QE. Okay, so because of this, we have discussed this, what do you mean by tapering of QE. So automatically gradual withdrawal of dollar will happen, and it is better to invest over there. Okay, so that also was one of the reason for outflow of forex. Okay, so when outflow of forex means more demand for dollar. More demand for dollar mean dollar appreciate, and effectively rupee depreciate. So we are actually discussing the causes of depreciation of rupee. Next one. So because of all these, our credit rating is actually decreased, and there was a significant withdrawal of forex. Okay, so all these are affected very badly.